Pete,
Hang
Pete's
on.
got a PhD in beerology.
Hang on. Okay, we're live. Today is June 28th, 2015. This is the Lovecraft eZine talk show. There's Fred. And today we're going to talk with this person here. See that person there? There he is. He's coming to the screen.
Hello.
No, hey, Fred.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
And we're going to talk with, Niels is gone, but he'll be back in a minute. He's getting some tea. And then Amy's here, and the usual people are here. So, okay, first thing is, what was I gonna bring up? I guess I wasn't gonna bring up anything.
What about your giveaway?
Yeah, you were gonna bring up something.
Okay, I have a few books I can add to the giveaway today. I'll save a few more for next time. The first is maybe the finest Lovecraftian poetry available, which is the Hippocampus Press book Twisted in Dream by Anne K. Schwader. It is a marvelous book. It has the contents, I believe, of In the Yadeth Time.
Yep.
Okay. This is on the giveaway, and then the other is a really fine...
It also has the contents to The Worms Remember.
Yes, it does.
Which was edited by who?
I don't remember doing it, so I'm not sure.
By me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
You know what, though? Anne has a new book coming out, and it's going to be out. It's going to be out in time for Necronomicon, and I believe that Hippocampus is selling that book that you just held up, Matt, along with her new book as a promotion of some kind. I'll have to get the link back. Anne sent it to me.
Is it poetry or prose?
Prose.
It's prose.
Okay.
It's prose. Yeah, it's Lovecraftian tales.
Okay. Now,
anyway.
Also for giveaway, this is a really fine Lovecraftian comic. It is by Kim Holm. It is Hickman's Model. It is an absolutely great version of Hickman's Model. Really wonderful art. Great adaptation. So that's what I'll put on the table for today. I'll save the rest for next week. So you can, in addition to the ticket, viewers can request either of those books.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. We're also going to give away, thanks to Niels, we're going to be giving away more in the future, but we're going to give away a free ticket to Necronomicon. So if you've been thinking about going to Necronomicon and you can arrange the travel arrangements and place to stay, but not the ticket, or you like to save the money for the ticket, then this is your chance to do that. So anyway, we got this scientist guy on the show here. Actually, I don't think he's the only one, but we'll talk to him first. So Fred, you write Lovecraftian Science blog. I guess let's start off with this. Talk about what kind of scientist you are and what you do for a living.
Okay. Well, I'm an aquatic scientist, actually a limnologist. So I study and manage lakes and ponds. So I've been doing that for about 20 years. I went to Susquehanna University for my bachelor's, and then I went to the University of California, Davis for my master's in environmental studies, and then my PhD in limnology. And I've been an environmental consultant ever since.
When did you get into Lovecraft?
About the same time I really got into science, and I think it happens to almost everyone. It was junior high, and I remember, starting to getting into Dungeons and Dragons, and then starting to read Lovecraft, and this is even before, the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, and I was really blown away by the writing. There were so many layers, and that really piqued my interest. That, on top of listening to Carl Sagan and Cosmos in 1980, those two things together really stimulated my imagination.
Yeah, if the rest of you guys have questions, please feel free to jump in. Sagan sort of seems the flip side of the coin to Lovecraft in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. It's funny. It seems like both of them stare into the void, and Lovecraft says, "Oh my God, look at this! This is so depressing, where Carl Sagan would do the exact same thing and say, "Wow, isn't this amazing that we can even receive this?" So I agree with that.
Yeah, I've often thought the same thing. The same conclusions about the universe made them feel different ways.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the one thing they'd share is their curiosity about the universe, but Lovecraft's view of that curiosity is a lot more complex than Sagan's. Sagan's was, you know, we have to know and we have to learn, and it will tell us about ourselves and the universe we live in. For Lovecraft, it was, I like to know, but maybe knowing too much is a bad thing.
Yeah, I can't think of the exact quote, but Sagan actually said or wrote something to the effect of the truth, no matter what it is always more satisfying to know than delusion.
Yes.
I'm not quoting that exactly right, but that's a paraphrase, I guess.
Yep.
So talk about. Go ahead. Do you have a question, Matt? Sorry. Talk about Lovecraftian science, the blog.
Sure. I mean, actually, the reason why I started the blog was it was after the 2013 Necronomicon. You know, I submitted an abstract, and Niels, you know, accepted it. I was thrilled about it. And then when I gave the presentation and I went to the convention, I had such a great time. I didn't want that to stop. And actually, it was going to the Necronomicon that really got me into Facebook. I was never into Facebook until then. So I began to talk to people online, and I really wanted to keep that interest going. So that's why
Niels
I
has led a lot of people down that evil path, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's why I started the blog. Is I really wanted to do more investigating into the scientific aspect of Lovecraft. And Niels, you really helped to stimulate my imagination into that direction.
What? Well, you've written astronomy. You've written a lot of different things. The main, as I understand it, the main purpose of the blog is to sort of look at Lovecraftian themes and Lovecraftian stories through the lens of science. What are some of the articles that you've written that maybe are some of your favorites? Give people kind of a taste of what they can get if they go to Lovecraftian science.
Sure. Yeah. I do a variety. Like sometimes I'll take a specific story and really analyze that story, or I'll take a specific theme that Lovecraft talks about, or even a discipline of science, and really tease it apart. I'd say some of my favorite story is At the Mountains of Madness, but I have to say, in terms of the Lovecraftian science site, I enjoy the subjects that really stimulate a lot of arguing. And it's sort of like that academic arguing that I enjoy a lot. And I think a lot of people like that, when you can argue and not necessarily yell at each other, but try to get your point across. And two of the subjects that really stimulated a lot of discussion, one was whether or not the Deep Ones are part of the spawn of Cthulhu, or whether they're just another species that maybe the Elder Ones created. That was something that stimulated a lot of discussion. And then recently, the Dunwich Horror, I covered that one in detail, and a lot of people were sort of taken back by the scientific perspective I was bringing to that story. A lot of people thought, hey, you know, there's more magic in that than you're pointing to, and it's not all science. So it was just, but I enjoy that. I enjoy having those discussions with people, and I think people get a kick out of that as well.
Well, magic versus science in this fictional world we're talking about of Lovecraft, or any fictional world, or in the real world, I guess my particular view is, was it Asimov that said that, you know, forget the exact phrase about magic and science, that it's just sufficient, magic is just sufficiently advanced science, something to that effect.
Yes, and I actually used that quote in one of the articles because I wanted to bring that home, that something we may not understand to us may seem magical, but when it's teased apart from a certain point of view, it may have some pretty adherent scientific concepts. Now, there may be some things that we just we cannot understand. That's certainly possible, and I think Neil deGrasse Tyson has mentioned that some of the physics that we're getting into may be so complicated that just as human beings we may not be able to understand those concepts.
Yeah, ever. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you think there is boat magic in the Lovecraftian universe, or is it just science that you don't understand?
I think it's science you don't understand, but it is interesting that the evolution of Lovecraft's stories, how he started out as very gothic and very magic, or at least appearing to be magic based, and it seemed like as he went through his stories, he really focused more on describing things from a scientific point of view, and a lot of that was because of the time he lived in. This is something I've just learned investigating Lovecraft, how science was so dynamic in the early 20th century, how so many things were changing. Some of them were laid out in front of the public, like you think of Einstein's concepts and ideas, but others, like genetics, were sort of tucked away in the background, but there were a lot of strides in all disciplines of science going on in the 20th century that really, it's when a lot of people were really focusing on how science can really help to improve our lives, but also how it may be an imposing force as well.
Okay, I know I can't be the only one with questions, especially these other scientists here. Amy, what about you?
Well, I wonder if you see a parallel between his time and our time in terms of rapidly evolving science. Particularly, I was just thinking about how he folded the discovery of Pluto into the Whisper of Darkness, and here we are seeing new photos from Pluto just over the last few days, and they're decidedly weird. And how our evolving understanding seems to be at a point where we might draw parallels between his time and our time, how much information we're getting, and how rapidly scientific understanding and innovation is changing. Is this, in other words, a perfect time for you to be doing what you're doing, because we can sort of identify with Lovecraft's position towards science in a way?
Absolutely, I agree with that. And a lot of it has to do with the internet, access to so much information. I mean, it's shocking to me how just the concept of the Big Bang 10 years ago was sort of set in stone, and now there are some scientists and there's some hypotheses coming out that, you know what, the Big Bang may not be something that actually occurred. And so as a scientist, I find that exciting that I'm reading these articles where people are debating this, but as a non-scientist, I know that can be frustrating. It's like a comedian once said, is milk good for you, yes or no? And unfortunately, it's not that simple of an answer. And a lot of things in science aren't like that. And as an environmental consultant, a lot of times I start every sentence with, it depends. And a lot of people hate that it depends. And the problem with science is it depends on a lot of things, whether or not an answer is yes or no. But you're right, this is an exciting time in terms of you can just log on and see the types of research and information that's out there. And it may seem very conflicting as a non-scientist, but at the same time, it is very exciting to see what's being worked on right now.
Well, and I think people forget that it's okay to say I don't know. You don't have to have an answer, or the answer may be this is what we understand right now, and as we get more information in the future, our understanding may evolve. This isn't some ultimate truth. This isn't black and white.
Right.
Well, I find it sort of interesting. Lovecraft died a long time ago, and things have moved on, of course. I mean, you think about how fast Jules Verne thought you could get around the world, and then people talk about the Call of Cthulhu like it's some big deal that like a steamship ran into Cthulhu and whoop-de-doo, Cthulhu fell apart. But the idea was, I've heard it argued that that was the most powerful force in the world at that time. And nowadays, if he were writing, he might have had him send a nuke at it. But certainly what he was writing about, the understanding of it's not the same anymore. I mean, some of it's the same, but a lot of it's moved on. So you can't really hold that against him, that the science there may not be accurate or up to date in terms of 2015.
Yes, I agree with that. It's interesting. A lot of the astronomy and the physics. There's some there that's right on. Some of it that's off. His concept of evolution, though, was pretty deplorable. That obviously he and if you look at Joshi's stuff, it looks like he never read Charles Darwin's Origin of the Species, but he read a lot of Hale, and Hale had a very racist view of evolution, and that certainly comes through. And even like some of the stories where he's talking about how evolution operates, it's frustrating for me because I'm trying to tease it apart from a scientific point of view, and I know it's just incorrect. But again, it's a story. So what I like to do is I like to bring it to people's attention, or I'll throw out what I never try to use I believe or theory. I try to say I hypothesize that, look, this is almost like a thought experiment. Let's go through this. But you're right about that. Some of it, I would be interested what Lovecraft would think of, like Gould's The Measure of Man, and how basically humans are the same no matter what. There aren't really distinct races like Hegel would separate people into. So I wonder nowadays, if Lovecraft just appeared, what he would think about what we know about the human race right now.
Well, interesting, but again, sort of like you can't do it, because if Lovecraft were raised today, he wouldn't be the same person that he was. I mean,
right.
He'd be watching, Lilo and Stitch, and multicultural things would be just a normal part of his upbringing. It would be very difficult for him to be so isolated anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly, you got to think Child Protective Services might have stepped in at some point. What would Mozart be writing today? He wouldn't be writing classical symphonies. He'd be rocking heavy metal with Zeppelin or something.
Yep.
So you can't unfortunately say he'd be the very same person except this one parameter.
Right.
Well, there's still a lot of people who are racist today, but I don't know. Maybe the question is, somebody as intelligent as Lovecraft, would he have made himself all the additional information? Would that have made a difference? I don't know. It's interesting what you point out about Origin of Species versus Hegel.
Yeah, that's something I got out of Joshi's biography of Lovecraft. There's no evidence that he wrote or that he read Origin of the Species, but he certainly read a lot of Hegel. And like I said, and Hegel and Lovecraft were actually a lot alike in terms of that. Lovecraft was an artist who had a good scientific streak in him, where Hegel was a scientist who had a good streak of artistry in him. He would paint and illustrate those beautiful illustrations of a variety of planktonic species that he would pull from the ocean. I mean, I'm sure you've seen some of his books and some of his plates of some of the organisms he has illustrated. So, in a way, they're very similar. That they have this interesting blend of science and artistry.
So Chad on the message board says, Fred's talk at Necronomicon 2013, human interpretations on the biology and evolution of the old ones, was really impressive, very memorable. Can you talk a little bit about that, since you said that started all this?
Yeah, and again, I submitted the abstract, and Niels accepted it, and basically what I did was I focused more on some of the larger stories that were focusing more on the species and not necessarily the gods, and I really focused on the elder things and the deep ones, and I really interpret them in terms of what we know about science. So, for example, the thing that I really try to instill in people's mind is Darwin thought of the tree of life, that Earth would be one tree, and if that's the case, then the elder things came from another tree in the forest of our universe. Things like the Migo and Cthulhu, which are completely out of our universe, they would come from a different forest. So not even in the same forest, but from a completely different forest. So using that analogy to try to understand the biology of these organisms, and basically the conclusion was you really can't, there's no simple taxonomic or category you can put these organisms in, because some of them we have a difficult time understanding. Like Cthulhu and his spawn, I see as these multi-dimensional beings that come from another parallel universe, and they're trying to squeeze into our reality. So what we're seeing isn't what they truly look like. But again,
Right.
I'm hypothesizing, and I'm coming up with ideas, but I'm really basing my ideas on his writings. And anytime anyone brings up an opposing hypothesis, I really try to focus it back on Lovecraft's writings, sort of using that as the template to test a specific hypothesis. For example, he says elder things were created out of the same matter as we are. So I see the elder things as they evolved from some sort of echinoderm, some sort of starfish thing that lived in a tidal pool on some alien world, and then they evolved and started spreading throughout the universe. Where something like the Migu, we just don't have enough information on them. They're just so alien and from outside of our time space, it's difficult for us to even hypothesize about their evolution. So that was a big part of the talk. I talked about, and the deep ones, like I said, the deep ones bring about a lot of discussion, because I see the deep ones as, you know, since we can hybridize with them, we must be closely related to them. That and we don't even know if a hybridized deep one is the same as a deep one. Can a hybridized deep one reproduce? I mean, a lot of those questions are just hypotheses I throw out there that, you know, if we could take a DNA sample of a deep one and hybridize it with human DNA, and how they would line up would tell us how closely related we are to them. So stuff like that I like to discuss and throw out, not only, you know, just for a thought experiment, but to stimulate people's imaginations.
How do you view the mating of Yog-Sothoth with humans in the Dunwich Horror?
Yeah, and that was something that actually stimulated a lot of argument. That, I said, was a very unique reproduction, that was something that wasn't just two things within the same universe that are closely related mating. I said there was some sort of trans-dimensional mating. And the thing that people were really hung up on is I was saying that there was the incest between the grandfather and the father and his daughter to make Wilbur Whatley, but Yog-Sothoth was involved with that, and a lot of people took umbrage to that. They said that the incest was not a requirement, but I was making hypotheses that it may have been required to allow Yog-Sothoth to enter our reality, that this sort of very special relationship was needed for this entity to enter that particular strain of acceptable DNA. So that stimulated a lot of discussion, whether or not that relationship between the father and the daughter was there, or whether it was just simply Yog-Sothoth being called down and impregnating Lavinia. So that was something that generated a lot of argument. And I like that, because it's no one's right or no one's wrong. We're hypothesizing about something that's purely fictional. But I do like to look into various aspects of science to try to support that hypothesis. And I like to present that to people just to get the people thinking about things.
So Niels Hobbs wanted to be on this show, so I'm going to make him today's show
on,
specifically.
Mike,
so I'm going to make him talk.
Mike, let me ask Fred one question. Well,
No, please do.
all right. So, and this is going to digress a little.
You're reprieved for 2 minutes.
All right. So, Fred,
Niels is.
you went to UC Davis.
Yes.
You worked on Castle Lake.
Yes, I did.
You cited Garth Redfield in some of your papers.
Mm-hmm.
Did you work with him?
I've met him a few times. I haven't actually worked with him.
All right. This is how small our universe is. He's in my office.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I was a Goldman student.
Okay.
So Charles Goldman worked on Tahoe and Castle Lake. I was shunted up to Castle Lake. I wanted to go to Tahoe, but boy, I'm glad I ended up at Castle Lake. So yeah, tell him I said hi.
I will.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, there's like 1 degree of separation here between Fred and I. That's just weird.
Pete,
All
Pete, just one more question, one quick tangent. Do you know Eric Marzoff?
His name sounds familiar.
Okay.
But
He works down in Florida
okay.
for the state, so for one of the districts. I went to grad school with him, so.
Okay.
Cool.
Oh, he has a yacht too. Okay.
You can't get to work without a yacht here in Florida.
That's what I heard.
All right, now to Niels.
Yes. Hopefully he has something to say.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're a little low, but we can hear you.
Okay. All right. I'll try to lean in and speak a little bit louder. Hello there.
Hello.
What's up? How are you guys doing? Great chat so far, Fred. Obviously,
Thank you.
Some stuff. I love checking in on your blog, so it's great to actually be able to have this chat. And Fred, you are presenting again, aren't you? This August.
Yes. I'll be talking about the Lovecraftian cosmos. So it's more of sort of almost like a Neil deGrasse Tyson, Carl Sagan sort of presentation on the Lovecraftian cosmos.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
Are you going to locate Shug-Eye for us?
I don't know if I'm allowed to.
Now, Niels, for the audience, for everyone that doesn't know, can you explain what you do for a living?
I will try. I am finishing up my PhD at the University of Rhode Island right now, and I'm an instructor and researcher there, primarily with marine invertebrates, and sort of especially primarily looking at crustaceans and other invasive invertebrate species, mostly crustacea and a little bit of tunicates as well. So essentially the most bizarre, weird type of marine creatures that you could imagine. Talking about what Fred was talking about before, the stuff that Ernst Haeckel liked to do amazing drawings of, are the kinds of things that I like to study.
So, I mean, do you guys think that, a serious interest in Lovecraft, especially starting out when you're young, generates an interest in science as well, or are you interested in Lovecraft because you're interested in science? They just seem very much to go hand in hand in a way.
Yeah, I think for me it was very much hand in hand. It was sort of an intertwined growth of interest, and I absolutely point to reading a little too much Lovecraft as a teenager to my interest in marine biodiversity, just because Lovecraft was really the only author that at least I was commonly encountering that had an understanding of exactly how weird stuff actually can get on this planet, much more so than most other quote-unquote horror writers, or certainly much more so than like Hollywood movies did. So that was really the thing that captivated me on this kind of equal. I'd always kind of grown up by the shores, so I knew how strange just the beings on this planet can be. So here's an author that is expressing how strange the beings can be, beyond this planet, and kind of just made sense to me in a great way. And so it definitely stoked my fascination with science, reading.
I think you have to be careful, because there are plenty of people who are into Lovecraft who are into the mysticism part of it too.
Oh, absolutely.
Think that Lovecraft told the awful truth and didn't really realize it, or he was concealing it, or there really is a Necronomicon, or you can do magic with a K. As much as we like to think we're all rational.
No,
wait a minute.
No, I don't think Joe's
said I
rational.
was rational.
No, I don't think that everyone who's into Lovecraft is of this scientific bent, but it just seems like a lot of them are, or maybe that's just what I'm saying. I don't know.
Well, if you think I don't know about anybody else, but from my point of view, Lovecraft is the first guy that comes along and does aliens right.
Yeah.
It's no longer green men or purple men or bear men or little fuzzies. They're real aliens. they are minds that aren't our minds, but they think just as well.
Exactly.
And their biology and science is very different. And he's the first guy to really do that, except for maybe Hoyle with the Black Cloud. So yeah, I mean, he's the first guy to do it, and it's very attractive from a scientific point of view to grab that and say, yes, someone got it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mean you're referring to the fact that almost certainly intelligent beings would not evolve to look anywhere near like us on another planet. That's
I
what
mean,
you're meaning.
I'm all for a Princess of Mars, or the triple whatever, but no, they probably wouldn't.
And his cosmic perspective there is in a way informed by his understanding of science, in the sense that he argues in his letters that perhaps the most intelligent life out there could be a gas, right? Not even a solid. So it seems that his cosmic turn in his fiction is in part driven by the fact his imagination has been enlarged by the science that he studied. So it's not all about us, and thus the aliens don't have to be human-like. In fact, they have to be really alien. I mean, it all fits together. I agree with you.
And Niels not Niels. Fred brought up earlier the Migo being only partially made of matter that we understand, and the color out of space is a form of matter that we have no relationship to whatsoever. That in the 20s or 30s we would not have understood at all.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to ask, especially Niels, this question, and I'll explain in a minute how it relates to this chat. But when I read about, say, dolphins, for example, it seems like some material that I read indicates that that they're just as intelligent as we are, just in a different way, and some indicate that they're not. Is there an answer? Are we close to an answer on anything like that?
Well, that's a good question, and it reminds me to mention again the book that Fred mentioned before, Stephen Jay Gould's Mismeasure of Man, which is a phenomenal book. I think it's probably one of the most important books that he wrote. And essentially, it's talking about the concept of intellect, of intelligence, is really not something that can easily be quantified into a single number. And that's within one thesis. Essentially, part of the thesis of this book is rejecting the concept of an IQ. But also, the difficulty is that these other animals, I mean, I don't know how many millions of years separates us from dolphins, but it's on the order of tens of millions of years. Separate us from dolphins, their intellect has evolved off of a separate branch. So
right.
We simply cannot compare how they are smart relative to how we are smart. And what they do with their intellect is different from what we have evolved to do with our intellect. Our intellect as a tool is different from the evolutionary pressure that is giving rise to their intellect as a tool. So we simply can't really compare. I mean, obviously, I think most people would say pretty definitively, in a general sense, if you had to really put a crude measure on it, we're certainly notably smarter than they in most obvious ways. But really the answer is that they're remarkably smart for the evolutionary path. Likewise, even more impressive. Likewise, octopuses.
Can you speak up just a little bit, Niels?
Octopuses that we're separated by 600 million years of evolution, 500 and something odd million years of evolution, and here are these animals, these octopuses that we're not even close to being related to, who are capable of showing some of the capacity for intellect that higher vertebrates are, in terms of some degree of problem solving, tool use, etc. All of these important qualities of intellect, and they're being shown by an animal that is completely, literally alien to us, yet still being on this planet. So really the answer is dolphins are incredibly smart. Other animals are incredibly smart, but we just simply cannot compare them to the intellect. And that's not to say that they're of lesser intellect, even though arguably they certainly are. It's just a different type of intellect.
Well, I guess the reason why I ask is if we have the two examples that you just mentioned that are very intelligent, and we can't even find any kind of common ground with them, you know, what makes us think that we could with an alien from another planet? That's something that's not even from our planet, I should say.
Exactly. There's a really phenomenal interview that Neil deGrasse Tyson gave a few years ago, where basically it's like a 10-minute interview you can find on YouTube. It's probably a much longer interview, but there's a 10-minute clip.
Niels freeze, I think.
Yeah, Niels froze.
Well, one thing I would like to recommend is you might want to try Peter Watts, who's a biologist who writes science fiction.
Yeah, Watts
He
is
wrote this
excellent.
book called Blind Sight, and the concept it's part of a series, but the concept is intelligence without self-awareness. I'm going to phrase this wrong, but like things that aren't intelligent but not aware in the way that humans are. Just because an octopus has intelligence doesn't mean it can use symbolic communication or that it's self-aware, rather that it's very good at solving problems in its environment. There may be no basis for communication beyond, is that big thing going to eat me?
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up, because it makes me remember that I was wrestling with this problem a couple months ago, which, you know, when you can't sleep in the middle of the night. And I wondered to myself, Fred, I'm really interested in your take on this, and anyone else here, but is self-awareness a function of higher intelligence? In other words, can you not say that some being is extremely intelligent if they're not sufficiently self-aware? What do you think, Fred?
Well, you know, to follow up on the conversation, there's a book by Michio Kaku, The Future of Mind, and in it there's a good chapter about intelligence, and he talks about that if there was an alien race that was more based on an insect intelligence than ours, they may pass by us, and just because we would be nothing that is of value to them, they would just completely ignore us. That if you are a being that is more important, more concerned about the collective than the individual, like the Borg or something like that, but thinking more about insects, that if you were spreading your colony throughout the world, throughout the universe, and you came across Earth, you'd probably just ignore it because it's already populated and it will just take too much energy to colonize, as opposed to something that may not have life on it, unless a habitable world is that valuable to spend that energy. Otherwise, they would probably just completely ignore us. Yeah. So that's sort of the take. And then it's interesting. I read a book by a woman. Her last name was Williams. It was about octopuses and squid, and she made the point, because they can communicate with their colors and their photophores, if they could somehow communicate with us, they may say, well, humans are pretty dumb because they only have a very limited way of communicating, and that's through sound waves. They don't have this broad array of communication that we, you know, as octopuses or squid do. So, but that, again, that's assuming if we could somehow bridge that gap of communication and actually have a conversation with them.
Oh, that you bring up something very interesting, which was, I read this article about platypuses. How does a platypus see the world? And they've got this very sensitive bill with all these electromagnetic and electric charge receptors, and that's how it experiences the world, not necessarily with 3D color vision and sound.
Right. No, that's a really good point.
Why Perry is such a good spy, in other words.
Only people with kids get that joke right now.
Yeah, just to raise another point, since you were bringing up dolphins before, James Wade wrote a story around 1969 called The Deep Ones, which suggested that dolphins and deep ones were from the same genetic tree.
Yeah, and that was a very interesting story. Yep.
You know, we talked earlier, we were talking about intelligence and consciousness, and I brought up this story Hive by Bruce Sterling before, and I'm going to skip most of it, but in the story, he postulates that there's no evidence that consciousness is useful.
Yeah.
That life can go on throughout the universe perfectly well without it.
Which solves Fermi's paradox quite nicely, for one thing.
Yes. In fact, I think at one point he actually suggests that life would be better off without consciousness interfering.
Yeah, well, it depends on what you mean by better, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
I mean, I guess if you're Thomas Ligotti, you think it's better.
Oh, this is so cool because again, getting back to Peter Watts, he wrote a really great book called Starfish and evolved it into a series. But the book was basically, when life evolved, there was a choice, A and B, in terms of how the organisms metabolized sulfur. And A won out and colonized the whole world except into the deep rifts of the ocean. There's this B life form. And it was a very simple organism that could bind sulfur much more effectively than any other thing on Earth. But it was confined to this small environment. And the humans had put a lot of their decision-making into artificial neurons derived from cephalopods because they could make these very rapid, accurate calculations. And they thought that this was an advantage, and then a psychologist is interviewing one of these artificial intelligences and says, trying to get at which life form would it favor. And it says, what do you like better? He says, do you like chess? Yes. Do you like checkers? Yes. What do you like better? Better is a funny word. He says, think better as more good. Oh, I like checkers. And the guy just started laughing and left. And it meant that it preferred the simpler choice, and it was going to favor the simpler organism. It was a very interesting way that Peter Watts did this. I really recommend that book for a lot of reasons.
So if this is, yeah, obviously if this is a discussion that greatly interests you, you should pick up Peter Watts stuff.
Well,
Fred, go ahead, Amy. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sure. Just to bring this full circle then with the truly alien, Peter Watts also wrote the story The Things, which was from the alien's perspective an answer to John W. Campbell's Who Goes There, which was then adapted into the films The Thing. And turns out very, very good evidence that John W. Campbell wrote Who Goes There in response to At the Mountains of Madness. So it all comes full circle.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, you can read that Peter Watts story. Is that titled The Things? Or
yeah, it's free on his website.
Yeah, on Peter Watts' website, you can read that online.
You have to plug the Weird Company.
Yeah, so the Weird Company, yes, it's a plug, but basically fills the gap between At the Mountains of Madness and Who Goes There.
Nice. I read your first book and really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to reading that one. I'm sort of saving it because I devoured your first book and really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to that second one.
I had a lot of fun with the scientific method in the first book. I took some liberties, but the basics were there.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks.
No.
Well, I'm dying to ask Fred, can reanimation work the way Lovecraft described it?
Actually, you know what? That's one of the stories I haven't covered yet, and I'm going to start doing research on it. I like to roll that out around toward Halloween. I'll be doing probably about 8 or 9 articles. I do about a weekly article, and I just finished Dunwich Horror, and right now I'm getting back into more solar system-based stuff with Lovecraftian. I'm trying to cruise into when we get some good photos of Pluto. But Reanimator's on my list for this year. I really want to tease that apart and look into, reanimation of dead tissue, what sort of research has been going on with that. So I am going to do that this year.
Great.
Well, speaking of full circle, you just mentioned Pluto, and I've been interested in science ever since I was very young, but I distinctly remember I was probably 6 or 7. My parents had a complete set of encyclopedias. So, yeah, I'm a nerd. I would read the encyclopedia, especially looking up all the astronomy stuff. And I looked up Pluto. I remember looking up Pluto, and there was a picture, an artist rendition, of what is, standing on the surface of Pluto, looking towards our sun, and it was this kind of snowy landscape, and the caption was, "This from this distance from the sun, even though Pluto's still orbiting the sun, it's just a slightly brighter star than the rest in the sky." For some reason, that just really captivated me. To realize that this planet, or I guess the planetoid now, is orbiting this star, but look how small it looks in the sky. So
it sort of reminds me of the Voyager mission. I can't remember if it's 1 or 2, but Carl Sagan begged NASA, and they eventually did this, to turn the spacecraft around and take one last photo of where Earth was before it left the outer part of the solar system, and you just see this tiny little dot, and Carl Sagan made the point that that's Earth right there in the vast cosmos. That little pinpoint is where everything that you know about in history up to now has occurred in that little tiny dot.
And I got that same kind of sense from that picture, that this planet I'm living on is just this dot in the universe, So anyway.
But let me take that one step forward, because even though Pluto is looking back at the Earth or at the sun, and it's this tiny little dot, the gravity exerted by the sun is still relevant that far away.
Yep.
That it gives you a kind of cosmic scale of what kind of forces we're dealing with. Even though it looks no brighter than anything else in the sky, the pull of the sun is still so great to whip that thing into an orbit. That's insane.
Yep. And the fact that you have comets that go far beyond Pluto, and they're still within the gravitational pull of the sun is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's easy to see why.
Geeked out a little.
Sorry?
You just geeked out a little.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's easy to see why, if that kind of thing fascinates you, if astronomy fascinates you, if scale of us in the universe fascinates you, why Lovecraftian fiction and cosmic horror would fascinate you as well, So, you still there, Fred? I think you keep freezing. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just your little picture that's freezing. So.
I mean, one of the cool things about talking about Lovecraft, but using concepts now, there are so many interesting hypotheses and ideas out there in terms of parallel universes, how a lot of the equations to sort of put the 4 basic physical forces together into one equation seem to work best when there's 11 dimensions as opposed to the 4 we're familiar with, the 3 spatial and 1 temporal. Where are those other dimensions? And dark matter, dark energy, how gravity can be something that is really moving in and out of our reality into others as opposed to the other 3 forces. There are all sorts of interesting ideas that, when you take it from a Lovecraftian point of view, you can just run with it and throw these ideas out in some of the stuff that Lovecraft was talking about.
Oh, I just got to say, I just read a book by David Hambling. I'm starting like on, I don't know, Shadows from Norwood or something like that, and it was the Dulwich Horror.
Okay.
And he was trying to explain a multidimensional creature and how that would be experienced by a human being. You know, like Yog-Sothoth is contemporaneous with all space and contemporary with all time. And the interesting analogy was he threw a tennis ball in a pond. And the tennis ball was bobbing up and down, breaking the surface in different points in its diameter. And it's like that's how you would experience it. You're in your 3 dimensions, you're the surface of the pond, and you just see the circle expanding and shrinking like for no reason, and it's happening in a dimension you can't fathom.
Yeah, or the novel Flatland, which is about,
right.
I think, a triangle or a square or pardon me, a cube or a sphere or something 3-dimensional that visits a 2-dimensional world. And I've talked about that. This is a fascinating topic to me, Matt. I talked about the movies Pontypool and The Corridor before, and my take on them both were they couldn't understand what was happening, and maybe this is some being from another dimension. These are the only aspects of this being or whatever it is that you can reference in a 3-dimensional world, or that you can see or experience.
Yeah, it's.
So,
I mean, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, just to follow up with what you were saying, that Flatland example. Again, I think I remember seeing this on Cosmos, that if you have a sphere and it's hitting that flat universe, that what the cube or triangle sees is a point appear out of nowhere. It becomes an expanding line to a maximum size, and then it goes back to a point and disappears right in front of them. And Lovecraft has sort of a scene like that in Dreams in the Witch House, where he's talking about how Gilman, when he's traveling through hyperspace, these 2 little creatures, these hyperdimensional creatures, are following him. One's a polyhedron, and it's sort of changing shape. Well, it might be this multi-dimensional entity trying to squeeze its way into his perception of this 4-dimensional universe. So it's interesting. I've always made that connection between Flatland and Dreams in the Witch House.
Trying to remember when, I'm looking it up now, when Flatland was written. It's an older...
Like maybe late 40s, from what I recall. I could be way off base on that.
No, 1884, because
I'm way off.
Yeah, I was wondering to myself if Lovecraft could have read it, and obviously he could have.
Yep.
It's been a long time since I read it, but that's mainly what I got out of it is, how would extra-dimensional creatures appear in a dimension that, in a plane that had less dimensions than where they were from.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, what are you going to write about next on Lovecraftian science?
I'm going to focus on the right now I'm focusing on some more solar system based stuff, and with that I go through most of Lovecraft's texts from astronomy, and I also link it to some of his stories. So his stories are riddled with references of comets and meteors and Jupiter and Jupiter's moon. So I like to make the connection of the observations he has seen in space with what is going on in his tales. So and Joshi's book on the Volume 3 Science is just such an incredible resource for a lot of that stuff. So I'll be writing about that stuff for a while. After that, I may be hitting some of his other stories. For example, one I want to talk about is the thing on the doorstep, and this idea of moving a consciousness from one entity to another. And again, Michio Kaku's book talks about this, about how there may be technology where we can download memories into one entity and send it to another. So I'll be talking about that, and then like I mentioned earlier, I want to roll into fall and start getting into Reanimator. So I have some things lined up for the next few months.
And you wrote an article for me as a favor for me to publish on the Lovecraft eZine blog section on Europa. I'm going to publish later this week, or next 10 days, let's put it that way. So
Cool.
Thanks for writing that.
Oh, no problem. And by the way, if you've never seen the movie Europa Report, I have nothing to do with it, but it was a good movie. It was a very interesting take on trying to make contact with intelligent life on, well, any type of life on Europa. Really good movie.
Yeah, and as Pete, I believe it was Pete said before in the show about Europa Report, it's very realistic in regards to space travel.
The thing I like about Europa Report, and I think Niels and I have both done, field studies, and I hope Fred's done some too, but essentially it's a whole lot of waiting. And it's a whole lot of waiting where personalities come into conflict and accidents happen and disasters have to be taken care of, and everything that you planned to have and ready to go when you got where you needed to be, you don't have that anymore, and you've got to make do. And it's a long period of time to do nothing, and then a very short period of time to do the actual research.
Right. Yep.
Hurry up and wait for a long time, and then things happen, and you got to do them quickly.
The last movie I saw that really did a good job of that was 2001. The waiting is the hardest part. The doing nothing.
I'm gonna jump in a little bit on Europa Report too.
Yeah,
I'm
a
huge fan. In addition, sort of essentially what Fred and Pete are saying, it I think does a remarkable job of presenting scientists as actually competent, driven people who are driven by the passion to learn, and did a far better job of presenting those kind of people than sort of an easily compared movie Prometheus, which I think did an abominable job of presenting scientists and the quest for knowledge via the scientific method. Europa Report is phenomenal in that light, and I'm actually friends with the guy who wrote the movie. He's actually on our film committee for Necronomicon. His name's Phil Gillette, and he lives in Providence. As a quick aside, he's actually writing up a screenplay for a Laird Barron story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he'd be a neat guy to have on sometime on the eZine.
I was actually about to ask if you'd mentioned to him sometime, yeah.
But he's a great guy, and that was kind of the core purpose for that screenplay that he wrote, was presenting, all right, here's the setup. You have scientists who are actually A, competent, and B, passionate about learning. And what do you do, when you put them into a situation where they're pushed to the limits, they perform admirably under the conditions. Sometimes they make mistakes because they're still human, but they are incredibly intelligent, capable people who adapt and who want to learn. And that's the setup for the Europa Report. And of course, the concept of what Europa is and what it might mean and what it may hold makes for a great backdrop for that. It makes for a very Lovecraftian movie, I think. We're actually going to be screening it at Necronomicon
nice.
This August. So.
Yeah, it's on my list of favorite Lovecraftian movies, and the only complaint I ever hear about that movie always boils down to, oh, there's not enough action. Well, there's not meant to be. It's not that kind of movie. If you go into it expecting that, then maybe you should, like you said, be watching Prometheus.
Yeah. The funny thing is that, we have this in my office. We have this saying: is that any day that you come back from the field with all your fingers and toes and all your equipment is a good day. And it is. We have boats and helicopters and regular boats, and it's there. The opportunity to have an accident is just immense. I've had airboat props shatter in full spin. I lost a ponytail to a starter engine. All these kinds of things. Europa highlights everything that can possibly. And still, people, a lot of people would have given up halfway through that trip. But they were driven. They wanted to do this. And it's a worthwhile movie. I think it really does a great job showing what science and technicians have to do to get their job done.
Yeah. I saw that movie the day after I saw the Will Smith movie, Second Earth, or I can't remember.
That was terrible.
Oh, and I'm like, oh, that was such a bad movie. And then I watched Europa Report, and it was made for a fraction of the money, and it was such a better film. I was so impressed with it.
I just need to comment one thing on the Will Smith movie. which, like, on the blurb, which just absolutely drove me insane, made me not see the movie, was they said, this is a world where for 1,000 years all these creatures have evolved to attack humanity.
In 1,000 years.
Well, wouldn't they have starved by now?
Well, and there's no humans there who actually
for
evolved
1,000
again.
years.
But that's the problem I have, is that they're evolving against humans, but there's no humans on the planet.
Right.
But
Right.
I hope they didn't say that it was over 1,000 of years that they were evolving, because that's a blink of an eye.
Right.
Right. Well, just saying. It's one reason
I wouldn't feel too threatened by anything that was evolving by 1,000 years unless it was a virus. But
Right.
I'm looking at all the great discussion on Facebook. I guess I must have missed some stuff while I had some technical mishaps, but looks like there was some really cool discussion on intellect and stuff. I'm sorry I missed out on more of that. But
Well, we'll just redo it when we do. You're chairing a panel with Fred and I and
yes.
a few other people on Eldritch Science.
Yep.
We'll just cover it all then.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun time. That'll be a fun time. You're bringing the whiskey for that, right, Pete?
Yeah.
The preservative, the 70% ETOH, right?
Yeah. What time is that?
This is a perfect segue to talk about Necronomicon. So, Niels is, for those who don't know, for the one person out there who doesn't know, Niels is the organizer behind Necronomicon Providence, which is August 20 through 23rd. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
And bringing whiskey is a requirement. Is that right?
Well, if Pete's in the room, yes, I think that's true.
It's got to be whiskey or moonshine, one of the two.
I'll tell a funny story. This is a good science story and a segue to some extent. I'm in the process of relabeling and reorganizing the invertebrate collection that my department has, which is, of course, kind of one of my dream jobs. And I just sort of decided to do it myself. But there's a lot of great old samples in there, and there's this one amazing octopus from the Caribbean that's preserved in the jar. It looks kind of like it's a mayonnaise jar with this beautiful octopus, perfectly preserved. I opened it up just to check the preservative to see if it's formalin or something like that. And it was hit with the unmistakable, overwhelming smell of spiced rum. From an old professor of mine that I'm good friends with, and I confronted him. I'm like, you were on vacation down in Florida and found this octopus and had nothing else to preserve it with, so you used the local rum. And he completely denied it, but there's absolutely no way it's anything but spiced rum. And, sometimes you make do with what you have on hand.
I opened up a container at Florida Tech, and I swear to God it was Aqua Velva. You will...
Yeah, I've had to make a couple plankton nets out of pantyhose. Trying to go to the drugstore and buy some pantyhose so you can make. And you're trying to explain to the person, I'm trying to make a plankton net.
Yep, right. Yep.
I have made fan belts out of pantyhose.
So Necronomicon Providence. What can we expect, Niels? And talk about. Sorry, what?
Drunk Pete is what Niels expects.
Rum and Pete, yeah. I'm there, man. If that's all that's going to be there, I'll be there.
Yep. Pete is the center. He's in the center circus ring for sure. Well, so it's essentially 4 days of madness in the heart of Providence. The core 3 days, really, the 21st to the 23rd, are all panels, talks, and author readings and that kind of stuff. Thursday, the 20th, is Lovecraft's 125th birthday, so that's really kind of the day that kicks off the whole thing. It's mostly outdoor activities or non-traditional convention stuff, so a lot of walking tours. We're going to be doing all-day film screening, including, if I remember correctly, including Prometheus, Europa Report, the special edit version of Dan O'Bannon's Lovecraft movie, The Ancestor, which is phenomenal, and a few others. And
is that a version of The Resurrected? Is that the same thing?
That's his own special edit of The Resurrected, which, for those of you who haven't seen it, it completely changes it. It makes it so much more of a true telling
of the case of Charles Dexter Ward. It's really well done.
Wow.
Okay.
Even as it's a very rough work edit. Parts of it there's no score or anything like that, and sort of minimal effects in some places. Some places there's actually just a placeholder card, but Dan really obviously put his heart into this, and fortunately salvaged enough of it from the mess that the studio did with it. And now Diane O'Bannon, his widow, is generous enough to let us show it. It was just recently screened, and we screened it 2 years ago, but none of our crew got to see it because we're all so busy, with the exception of our projectionist. So we're happy that now we finally get to see it, hoping we get to see it, because it really is worth it. But anyway, so then the rest of the convention is kind of very similar to what we did in 2013, except bigger, more of it. A lot more things like walking tours, including now actually we're going to be doing bus tours of some of the farther flung places, including Lovecraft's gravesite, and a few other things like that. But and then of course the thing that Fred was involved in 2 years ago was that some of the academic talks, and so I try to bring in academics who are sort of experts in some certain field, not necessarily talking about things that are directly related to Lovecraft, but topics that Lovecraft essentially would find interesting. And I think we have 8 academics that are going to be giving those talks. In addition, we also have a symposium of new research, generally from either younger academics or independent researchers, or in some cases very well-established faculty from universities around the world. So we have a guy coming from Rio de Janeiro, a grad student there, a few professors from different universities around the country, and also from Europe and South America. And that's called the Dr. Henry Armitage Memorial Scholarship Symposium, named in honor of the caretaker of Lovecraftian knowledge at Miskatonic. And so we have quite a number of stuff. Things are looking great. Right now I think we're just under 2 months out, so I'm officially getting into the panic mode phase where my amount of sleep that I'm getting every night is starting to precipitously decline.
Okay, so panels, talks, vendors. You're showing your Europa report on the first day. Are there movies shown the other days as well?
Yes, there's actually, we're kind of building up. The weekend is the crescendo, the 4 days of the convention of the crescendo, but we'll be showing movies and doing walking tours on the week leading up to the convention, and then those kind of things will also carry on during the convention. So there'll be walking tours and film screenings, including blocks of shorts from the guys at the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival. We'll also be showing some best of blocks, which is great. We're very happy to partner with them and do that too.
Okay, and then Joey wanted us to mention, looks like in the Providence Journal, looks like today, short story contest, can you spin a tale like Lovecraft? Providence Journal is holding a short story contest seeking original tales of terror that exemplify the best of H.P. Lovecraft's weird fiction. Some cool, there's three prizes given out. $100 gift card to Barnes & Noble. Second place is a $75 gift card, and third place is a $50 gift card. So that's interesting. Wow. Sorry?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so just, let's see, it's providencejournal.com. So just look for it there, I guess.
Wow, that's kind of neat. I'm impressed that they did that. They took that on their own, which is great. That's like kind of one of my hopes, is that people around the city will sort of take on things like that themselves, and it's great to see that happening.
Yeah, I think you're sort of rippling the pond there. You're also, your store, Lovecraft Art and Sciences. Well, describe that for me. I don't think I'm describing that very well. It starts on July the 1st, opens on July the 1st.
Right, yeah, sort of as part of the nonprofit organization that we have that runs Necronomicon, one of our long-term goals has been to try to establish a permanent footprint, essentially, for Lovecraft and for people coming to coming to Providence to see Lovecraft sites or find out more about Lovecraft. So we've recently opened up a storefront, a visitors center, sort of weird emporium, if you will, in the Providence Arcade, which is this great historic building downtown Providence. And it's already been open a little bit, but our grand opening, quote unquote grand opening, is this Wednesday, on July 1st.
That sounds pretty awesome. I mean, is it like a Monday through Friday thing, or?
It is. It's a Monday through Saturday. We're trying to actually be open on Sundays as well, just because since we do want to be available to tourists and people coming in from out of town, we'd like to be open on Sunday as well.
Well, while we're talking about it, this is a nonprofit. Do you need help with that, like manning the place, manning the store, or is that all covered already?
We certainly do. We need help across the board.
Okay.
I mean, we are. Well, actually, I should thank you, Mike. I might as well. You recently were one of the kind souls who sent us some good stuff for us to put on our shelves. We're very receptive to donations of goods that we can use to sell to generate funds for our various projects. Mike and a few other people, Pete, I know, has sent some stuff that we're very happy to have. And in addition, we are working with a few volunteers that will help man the store as well. So.
Well, so essentially, first, for one thing, if you are out there watching this and you have a Lovecraftian themed book or even some science fiction or horror, you would like to for them to email you and see if it's something you can receive or something that would be good for the place.
Absolutely. We'd love any of that stuff. And we're also we have quite a large selection of non-fiction books as well that touch on topics that obviously are relevant to Lovecraftian discussion, from Rhode Island history books to various science books, and books on architecture. The things that would have appealed to Lovecraft, and also inform us as sort of a modern reader of Lovecraft. So books on Rhode Island history, the history of essentially, literally the history of race relations in Rhode Island, which is a fascinating and relevant topic. That kind of stuff too. Because our hope, our goal is that we present sort of a good base of knowledge or exposure to Lovecraft, but in a very nuanced way, not just strictly for the fans, but for people who are actually seriously interested in learning more about Lovecraft, the good and the bad. Right. And of course also exploring all of the authors that either he was inspired by or artists that he was inspired by, and the authors that are continuing. So there's a few. We have some Pete Rawlik, we have some Joe Pulver, we have some Mike Davis, we have a number of other authors that have been on the show before that are on our shelves right now.
If someone wants to ask you if some books they'd like to send, if those would be good, or someone living in Providence wants to volunteer or whatnot, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best way to do that?
They could email us through our website, probably, if they contact us through necronomicon-providence.com.
Okay.
That's probably the easiest, best way to get in contact with us.
Okay, and you have Joe.
If they're in the area, they can certainly stop by the store.
And you do accept Joe Pulver books? Did I hear that right?
Well, we have to accept Joe Pulver books, don't we?
It's the law.
That's right. It wouldn't. I mean, we could almost call it the Joe Pulver Arts and Sciences store.
Oh yeah, because Joe is so conversant in the sciences. Yeah.
Joe, I already sent Niels those.
Oh, yep. Okay, cool.
Yep, we just got some. Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Joe.
Niels, I sent the walking distance of the hotel.
It is, yeah. It's Providence is not very big, so it's like 2 blocks from the Biltmore.
So it would be like a perfect place to have a mass signing.
Oh gosh, a mass signing. So we have something like 100 authors attending next.
Yeah.
What is the address for people who live in Providence or vacation in Providence? Go to Providence and check it out.
It's in, like I said, it's in this amazing historic building. It's called the Arcade, which is I think the world's oldest enclosed, like continually active enclosed mall. It was built in 1828. It's this gorgeous Greek revival, looks like a temple. And it's called the Providence Arcade, and it's at 65 Weybosset Street in downtown Providence, zip code 02903. But it's a phenomenal place. It's very easy to find in Providence. It's right at the base of the Superman building, as it's called, the Industrial Trust Bank building, which is kind of the biggest iconic building in Providence, and just around the corner from the Biltmore. So yeah, it's pretty centrally located. We're really lucky. We're really fortunate to have it.
And if I go to visit this storefront, do I have to have my leash on, or can I just go in?
Your leash?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll allow you in. We'll hold on.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. And there are a couple of big signings going on. I know Lois Gress and PS Publishing is debuting Innsmouth Nightmares. There's a thing for that. At the moment, there's no plans to do anything with the Doom that came to Providence, but we have 21 of those contributors at the convention out of 23, so, you know.
That is one hell of a cover.
That is an amazing.
Yeah,
Nick except for Sam and I are keeping the innards secret. Yes, Nikki did a brilliant job with the cover, but let me tell you about Sam Cowan. We talked, you know, he listened to Pulver's stupid ideas, and that cat can do some stuff. We got some surprises for inside, too. Niels hooked me up with Gage Prentice, who has done some just phenomenal. I'm going to find out where he lives and steal a couple of these things. Did I just say that? Oh, I guess I did. Gage has done some really amazing work, which no one will see till they get to see inside the book. But we pulled off a few tricks, so it'll be an interesting looking book, and I hope a lot of fun.
Well, for everyone out there watching that isn't quite sure what we're talking about, the Doom that, and you can probably describe it better than me, but the Doom that came to Providence is going to be, there's going to be a limited number of copies available at the convention, and it's a round robin. Sorry.
And posters.
And posters, yes.
Yeah.
It's a round robin story about
we'll call it a pseudo round robin because Niels, who is so intelligent and so sensible, normally actually said that, yes, Pulver, go ahead with your idea, it's a good idea. So basically, in 2013 we attended Waterfire. I thought it was a marvelous, wonderful thing, and it stuck with me to have that mass of Lovecraftians, as well as other residents of Providence, gathered for a Lovecraftian event. You know, and there was lights and music and costumes, and it was just wonderful to behold. And I thought, you know, what if something bad happened here? What if this was the nexus for a Lovecraftian event? And, you know, we have devastation, of course, and I like the idea of witness reports. So that's what our round robin is. It's a series of various kinds of witness reports of a Lovecraftian happening at the Waterfire event.
Oh man, I need a copy of this so bad.
Well, you may have to do some serious begging and stuff, Carpenter. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, do we know how many?
And we've done everything from, well, we even invited Mike Davis, just to shut him up. Niels was a key player in my imagination, because if there were to be a Lovecraftian disaster, certainly during the convention,
He'd have to deal with it.
the convention would release some kind of public statement. Our buddy Tom Lynch used to work for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, so I thought it might be appropriate if he gave us a real live police report. And so there's all kinds of things. Ramsey Campbell gave us a wonderful witness report, and Lois Gresh was another guest, and Bob Price, Michael Sisko, that Reanimator guy, that weirdo. What the hell's his name?
Ramsey Campbell's in it too.
Ramsey Campbell is in it. And the other thing too is, I wanted, old school, new school. I wanted Pete. Pete is a classicist in a way, whereas Sisko is a radical experimenter. I wanted to show the vast, in a way, the vast expanse of what Lovecraftian is, within this context. What are you laughing at, Rawlick?
Pete's class.
Something I typed.
And
I'm classic.
For the
not
audience,
classic.
I typed in the sidebar. What did you say?
I think after Reanimatrix gets published, we won't use that term anymore.
No.
Perhaps.
He may not be invited to Providence 2017 after.
And as opposed, at the moment, I think it's running about 75 pages. So it's.
Well, do we know yet how many copies will be printed for sale?
No, it will be limited, and that's being discussed.
Because I know Matt wants to know, so I'm asking for him.
I do, man.
Will people be allowed to reserve copies?
That has not been discussed. Off the cuff, I would say no, because that's unfair to convention goers. This is going to be a thing where it'll be available at the convention. I mean, we want regular folks to be able to get their paws on this too.
I'm regular.
I take my Imodium.
So get online. It's first come, first serve is what you're doing.
Yeah. And you're going to be there Thursday, Rick. Relax.
I know I'm going to be there.
Rick, I'm going to give you some money.
No, I just
want to. One of the things.
Thursday is what.
All right, let me be the bad guy here.
No contributor copies. That's what he's trying to say.
No, that's not what I was going to say. If somebody walks up, if somebody walks up and wants to buy 25 copies, I'm vehemently opposed to that.
Right.
I don't want a bookseller or somebody who's going to take these and stick them up on eBay and rake people. This is something that was put together for the convention. It is something to promote the convention. I would like it available, and it's going to be very, very limited, yes. But I would like it available to convention goers. Perhaps there'll be a couple of copies that, we're going to do a live chat at the convention. Perhaps how we give away books on these chats. Perhaps we'll have a copy or two for the listeners who were unavailable to attend the convention. That I would, but these are kind of things that we haven't discussed in depth as yet. We will get to that.
Well,
one thing I will say is, when all is said and done, post-convention, Mike and I have already discussed this, and there will be, as a supplement to Lovecraft eZine, or an issue of Lovecraft eZine, that is this round robin. And it will have the art, it will be the online version, so those people who unfortunately cannot attend will at least have access to something that was an awful lot of fun and an absolute honor for me to participate in, and I think quite a number of Lovecraftians will enjoy. So I'll shut up now.
No, it sounds very cool.
Is this going to be a hardcover or a soft or?
I suspect it's going to look like a trade edition, but we're doing the last build right now. We're not ready for the printer just yet. Soon.
Question from the audience. Kenneth wants to know, Niels, are the panels at Necronomicon going to be recorded?
That's a good question. I hope that at least some of them will, but the big problem is that would be a rather monumental task. Because there's, yeah, I mean, at any given time during the day, there are at least 5 things going on that's core programming. That's not even counting film screenings or games or anything like that. There's Armitage Symposium, or the academic talks are going on in one room. There's 3 different panels going on in 3 different rooms besides that. And then in a 5th room, there are author readings and book signings. So that's just the core programming in the Biltmore and in the Omni. So that would be just Herculean to be able to cover all that stuff.
Someone did a really good job. You and I talked about this, Neil. Somebody did a really good job of recording like maybe 3 or 4 panels from 2013. You know, they were on a tripod and everything, but I mean that's just a slice of everything that was there.
Yeah. Right. That I thought was great. Even just something like that, a little taste like that would be great. So I know Todd Chacon, who did a lot of the photography last time. I think he has a video assistant. He's going to try to do some videotaping of certain sections of the convention. But.
Yeah, I'll say this too. And Todd did a phenomenal job. And I wish I knew who it was that was sitting in the audience that recorded several of these panels. I'm going to try and find out because he put them up on YouTube, and maybe he'll be there this year. Because then we can link to those later as well. You know, I consider it part of my job to give Lovecraft eZine readers that can't be there a taste of everything. But to answer your question, Kenneth, as far as being able to experience all the panels and everything, that, like Neil says, that's near impossible. But I for my part, I can try and give my readers a live taste and recorded taste of what's going on. But there's going to be a lot that we missed too.
And this is a good time to tell people it's like no matter how extensive we could share things with individuals via social media and whatnot, it's not like being there. This is a gathering of family, basically. Creators, fans, artists, musicians, just everything. You're at home. What's in the air is just electric. To a person, I have, and this is, here we are almost a full 2 years after the last convention. I know of one complaint, one, by an attendee.
Well, attendees, yeah.
Come on, I didn't mean it. I wasn't serious.
No, I will tell you how much fun I'm looking for houses in Providence.
I mean...
Does Mandy know this?
Yeah.
I mean, you're a fan. You're a huge Laird Barron fan. There's Laird Barron sitting in the lobby of the Biltmore. You can walk up and say hi, and you're going to discover that this is one of the most affable, wonderful cats you ever talk to for 5 minutes.
Well, then why'd he call security on me?
Hey, there's a lot of
whole...
reasons for that.
Yeah.
Now,
I actually was trying to get you banned, but Niels said, that you offered him, what was that, $27,000 for a ticket? I do hope the check clears, Carpenter, or your ass ain't getting in.
Well, you could do the same with Pete, try and get a copy of Reanimator signed, but Pete has handlers. It's hard to...
Oh, yeah, and he wants $20 for everything.
No, what's really funny is that I spent a good portion of
$20 just for the.
Yeah, I spent a good portion of Necronomicon trying to get Stuart Gordon to sign something.
Oh God, yeah, that's a funny story.
And I was in a leg brace at the time, so every time I would see him, I would like hobble after him, and apparently he's a lot faster than I was. And then I'm.
Well, I told you were coming.
On the last morning we're there, I'm sitting having breakfast at McCormick and Schmick's, and I look over and he's sitting right next to me. It's just like, all right, there you go.
You didn't tell the
I'm
rest
changing
of it.
my approach.
No,
this
I'm
year.
not telling the rest of it.
What, Matt?
I'm changing my approach this year. I brought books to be signed last time by a lot of people. I am only bringing one book this year to get signed, and this was Pete's idea, which is that book from PS Publishing about the Lovecraftian catalog, the sales catalog from the esoteric,
Starry Wisdom.
Starry Wisdom.
Peterson's book.
Yeah, the Starry Wisdom catalog. That's the only book I'm bringing because pretty much almost all the authors I really care about are in it, and so I'm just hoping to hit everyone up for a signature for that book. I think said there were like 47 signatures you needed. It's like bingo.
And we're only going to charge you $25 a head to sign it.
Okay.
Well, think of how collectible it'll be. It'll be worth a lot of money. We just want our royalty. That's all.
Now, see, the thing is, it's like you say about collectibles. It's not the money. I love the book.
That's why we're going to charge you, because to you it's not about money.
Bastard. You're
Yes,
just
I am.
evil.
Thank you very much.
Evil. It's Joe Evil Pulver.
I prefer SOB to bastard, but if you want to go that route, I got big shoulders.
Now, I will tell you, Matt, you're right. I'm going to bring this. But what I'm also going to bring are these.
For Ramsey Campbell.
For Ramsey Campbell. These were, pseudonyms. Carl Dreadstone, he wrote these.
Yeah?
Ramsey Campbell wrote these novelizations of various Universal horror movies. And I just absolutely love these books. So, yes.
Yeah, I'm having lunch with him one of the days. I don't know if it's Saturday or Sunday.
You bastard.
Well, he's not paying.
Well, you are. That's okay. I took him shopping for DVDs once.
He owes you, Pete. You should get something from him.
I have some other Ramsey Campbell news, too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Scott Anilowski and I have Mr. Campbell's permission, and PS Publishing has greenlit the project, and we're editing a tribute anthology.
Awesome.
Which will focus not on his Lovecraftian work, but his other work, because there is a vast amount of psychological and body horror and other things, and his Lovecraftian work has been looked at more than once in this type of tribute. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It won't be out for the convention, you know, but everything's chugging along, and we so far have a wonderful list of contributors. An interesting list. Insert
That's
smile.
great news.
Yeah, I'm thrilled.
I mean, it's really great to rub shoulders with, you know, people that, you know, when I was a lot younger, I was reading their books from the library and, you know, checking them out at the library and reading them. Alan Dean Foster, that's another one. He's going to be there again, isn't he?
Is he?
I don't think so.
Niels?
Oh.
Or was I looking at an old list? I must have been.
He was definitely there in 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Oh,
there.
I know he was there.
Oh, man, I
One of my
cried.
highlights. I was on a panel with him, and
Yeah.
after the panel, he walked across the lobby, walked over to me, and put out his hand and said, "It was a real privilege to be on that panel with you." And I'm
He's a
like,
nice guy.
"That was Alan Dean Foster. It was a privilege to be on a panel with me. Oh my God!" You know?
Well, if you haven't bought a ticket to Necronomicon yet, there's still a bunch of general admission tickets available, and we're going to give one away in a little bit. Just go to necronomicon-providence.com if I have that right. I don't know if
I
Niels
put a link
put
on
it
the
there.
page.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean,
Google Hangouts
everybody
have a lot of problems today.
everybody go look at the guests. Go look at the panels and the other things that are taking place. This is going to be great. The last one was phenomenal. This one looks perhaps better. We'll find out.
Oh, that is a good idea. If you get too many books at Necronomicon, Leah Bond on the message board just wrote, "Mail your dirty laundry back to yourself. Fill your luggage with the space you just created."
Yeah.
Actually, I can interject real quick. I think we had arranged this last time in 2013, but a lot of people didn't know about it. You can ship back from the hotels. They generally have a shipping service, and we're going to arrange for that again this time so that you can, box up a box of your books and you don't have to worry about sending them back.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, just it sort of saves one hassle at least. Obviously, you may not see them for a few weeks if you send them in media mail, but at least they'll get there, and hopefully, and you won't break the bank.
A friend of mine who travels to Britain every year to buy books actually goes through her wardrobe and picks all the stuff that she's tired of, and she packs it in her suitcase, and then when she repacks to come home, she leaves it all behind. I think it's the most brilliant strategy I've ever seen.
Yeah, but there are problems with that, because here in Europe we have the VAT tax, and we have to come through customs. And if the book that I bring with me to read on the plane on the way back through, it's entirely possible they'll want me to pay the VAT tax on, thinking that I've brought it from America to resell it. I wonder. You will have to talk about that, Pete. I wonder what she's doing to sneak by that.
How much is VAT in Germany?
20%.
Yeah,
Oh
just-
my lord.
okay.
Yeah. And if they perceive it as collectible, well, and they're weird. I mean, they will. I was sent a couple custom-made action figures at one point for a birthday present last year, and they were listed. Customs form was all properly filled out, but Customs didn't like the price, so Customs spent time on eBay until they found a couple of what they felt were other custom-made action figures in the ballpark, and that's what they wanted. So they don't just, rubber stamp everything coming through.
Because I know I'm going to be asked this about the Doom that came to Providence, since there's a limited collector's edition. If you get the one that's at Necronomicon Providence, that's the ultimate thing to get. That's the real thing. But if you want to read the stories, then I've been told that later on I'll have permission to publish The Doom That Came to Providence in a digital format, which would mean the website and Kindle. But my question is, am I creating a print version of that as well, Joe, or just digital and Kindle? I don't care. I just want to do what everybody wants to do.
That has yet to be discussed.
Well, just think about it, because you're going to get asked.
And just let me put this out there for listeners. If possible, it would be a different print edition, but I'd like to see one, but I would like to see all the funds that are generated from it above cost go to the convention.
I know, I didn't agree to that.
Pardon me?
I didn't agree to that.
I'm just. That's my opinion. You're going to get it. You should know that by now. I mean.
Someone told me this publishing thing pays. I'm trying to make it.
Well,
no, that's totally fine, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
I mean, I just adore this convention and would like to do what little I can in any way, shape, or form to promote it, to say thank you for it, and to hopefully see it continue.
So Joe,
I'm not asking out of any monetary consideration. If someone pulls me aside at the convention and says, Mike, I hear I didn't get a copy. I hear you're publishing it later. I want to know what to say.
Within a few weeks, we'll have details on how many copies and blah blah blah. Okay. We are still talking. We are still planning. Be a little patient. We're trying to come up with something we think will be a lot of fun.
All 17 copies will be available Thursday morning. So.
Out of Joe's suitcase. By the way, I should also mention this is maybe bad news, but we are going to have something like 80 vendors. A good portion of them are booksellers and sellers that are ones that are selling other special edition books that are coming out specifically in time.
Are the vendors?
So Matt, you definitely will want to bring along a couple extra credit cards.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be. Sorry.
Are the vendors going to be in one place this time, or are they going to be spread out again?
No, they are going to be in one place. It was a bit of a you kind of give up something to get something. The vendors are going to be all adjacent to the Omni in the Rhode Island Convention Center. We have one big hall that they're all being put into.
Oh, sure. I got to walk by that all the time. Thanks.
Yeah. So it'll be more convenient. It's not going to be in one of the two main hotels, but it's going to be directly adjacent to one of the two main hotels. So it'll be more than a fair trade, I think, in terms of sort of hassles of having to walk somewhere else. I mean, the whole convention is very decentralized anyway, so having to go to a slightly different building is not really shouldn't be any significant inconvenience. And the vendors that are lined up are pretty remarkable. It's
your problem, Pulver, is you don't know how to work things. If somebody comes up to us to ask you for a signature on a book, you say to them,
the booksellers you'd hope to see mentioned.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were still talking. I was just telling Joe he doesn't know how to work things. If somebody asks for his signature on a book, he just points over to the vendor table and says, "Sure, and I want that book with your extra cash."
Oh.
Yeah,
No. This is a gathering of the family. This is not one of those horror conventions where it costs money to get your picture taken with somebody, where autographs cost money. This is hanging out with the family.
Right. And it never will be that other kind of convention.
Thank God. Or whatever deity you do or don't believe in.
Well, Niels, is there anything else that you want to say about the convention? Or we cover it all?
Niels, are we still doing trivia?
Yes, we're doing trivia. I don't have my schedule in front of me, remember correctly. Yeah, Pete Rollick is running his Mastermind Trivia. We actually have a bunch of games nights. I think all 3 of the main nights of the convention, there's various game activities happening. But Pete is doing his trivia night on Thursday night. Or no, I'm sorry, on Saturday night, if I remember correctly. We're posting all the schedules, so the panel schedules and all the sort of external event schedules are all going to be going up over the next week or 2. So the main panel schedule was basically already online, so you can see what panels are when, who's on what panels. The author readings are just about to get posted, probably will in the next day or 2. And then all the external programming will all be up within probably the next week.
For all you, speaking of author readings, for all you fans out there of the Sea of Ash, Scott Thomas is going to be there, and he's going to read a little bit from the Sea of Ash. So, and of course, there's a lot of other author readings as well. Laird and Joe, and I'm sure Pete and a bunch of other people.
We might, yeah.
Excellent.
And
And
I'm
N.K.
glad to
Schwader.
see everybody stole my idea about panels with booze. That's good.
Well, I got to say, that's an amazing idea. I was out at the CthulhuCon out in Portland in April, and the most pleasant panel I think I've ever had the pleasure to sit in on was a panel that Kelly Young was moderating. And it smelled amazing. The whole room smelled of single malt scotch.
Well, 2 years ago, our King in Yellow panel there, that's what happened. As Pete will attest to, it was listen to Cisco and Pete, Nesty and Joe and Kelly Young as they regale you with King in Yellow while they're drinking all this single malt. And
Well, you
some
notice that
moonshine
both of those panels, Joe, had more than one thing in common. It wasn't just the alcohol. Kelly Young was on both of them, so you know.
Well, that's true.
Hell of a nice guy. Good
yeah.
guy.
Unfortunately, he won't be there this time. But there's some people who make Lovecraftian wines, and they have some King in Yellow wines. So we maybe we'll be drinking a pale wine with our King in Yellow panel this time, or maybe Scotch. Who knows?
Yeah, I think the last thing I personally want to point out about the convention is that N.K. Schwader is the poet laureate. Right, Niels?
That's right. Yeah.
So,
the one last thing I would say that kind of reminds me of is she's going to be delivering a special poem that she's written in honor of the event at the commencement Thursday evening at the First Baptist Church.
oh, wow. Okay.
And that's kind of really kicking off the core of the programming, essentially, is that commencement. Just like in 2013, we'll have a few speakers there as well, speech. And, of course, Anne is going to, she's currently busily working on a poem especially for this occasion.
Excellent.
And that sort of culminates, that sort of starts the evening activities for Thursday for the 125th anniversary day. But there will be things all day. So the last thing I was going to say is people sometimes ask me, like, when should they come? And honestly, you really should try to arrive by Thursday if at all possible. And don't think that leaving Sunday morning you're going to have, you're going to be getting out of the light day. Sunday is pretty full of programming as well. So it's pretty solid programming straight through from early on Thursday straight through to Sunday night.
Anne really is very talented. And she's got a Lovecraftian book of short stories, a collection, pardon me, coming out.
Yeah, it's coming out.
We'll give away a book of her poems tonight.
Yes, that's right. I'm going to give away one.
And while we're speaking about Anne, because she's a very old dear friend of mine.
I think Joe froze. Salome, were you going to say something? Or waiting on Joe? You typed something about progress, but I didn't know what you meant.
Pete asked me if I wanted to talk about the progress, but it's not really appropriate to interrupt in the middle of other conversations to talk about.
Progress of what?
The anthology.
Oh, right, that. Yeah. Well, he'll be back. Joe will be back. Yeah, let's finish up talking about.
Joe's been going on long enough. We could hear from somebody else for a change.
Okay, so August 20th through the 23rd, Providence, Rhode Island. We will give away a ticket, but there are tickets available at necronomicon-providence.com. So yeah, okay. So you're talking about Cthulhu Lies Dreaming, aren't you?
Yeah. Pete asked me if I wanted to say something about the progress. I was going to wait until the end.
Well,
now.
this is the portion of the show where we talk about all kinds of general stuff. So the guests can stay, they can leave, they can do whatever they want. If they have no lives, they can continue talking with us.
I can hold up the helped armed intruders sign again.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. But before you do get to that, I really want to thank Fred and Niels for being here. Really interesting conversation from both of you.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I didn't. I'm sorry I missed out on getting to talk about more of the science stuff. But we will have a really good science panel with Fred and Pete and a couple other people on it. I'm very much looking forward to that. I had to back out of it last time in 2013, but I'm determined to be on it this time. So.
Yes, you looked a little bit busy during the convention. So anyway, I'm sorry, Salome. Go ahead. We're talking about Cthulhu Lies Dreaming now. Right?
Yeah. I'm really envious of all of you who are going to Necronomicon. You have made it sound so fun and interesting.
Well, I will do some I will do some Periscope live stuff and some YouTube live stuff from there too. So Joe's right. There's no substitute for being there, but I will try to provide the next best thing for Lovecraft eZine readers. So do you have all your signatures on the contracts for Cthulhu Lies Dreaming?
I have all but 2.
Oh, really? Okay.
I wonder who those 2 people could be.
I'll get you that tomorrow.
Wait, I did it.
No, you did.
Okay.
Oh, Pete hasn't either?
No, I did it. No, I did it.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, who's the other slacker? You can say. Nobody's watching.
The slacker is
being recorded.
Saucy.
Oh, okay.
He's the person who I sent. The system told me that Tim hadn't signed 2 contracts, so I assumed that the 2 of you had signed. So I started sending reminders. I was trying to send them to Tim because he hadn't gotten the message that he needed to sign those. But instead, the system was just lying. So I ended up sending you and Greg some extra notices to sign. And I sent Greg a whole bunch of them before I realized that I wasn't sending it to Tim, I was sending it to Greg. So I think he's not signing now because he's like,
well, yeah, I did get several of them, so it did cross my mind, do I have the final version, so I guess I do.
You do.
Okay, so when will this book be out?
I haven't set a date for it yet because the way we divide the editing up, I need Tim to do the final copy edit, and right now he's on contract for 3 books. So I'm trying to wait until he knows what his writing schedule is going to allow him to do. In the meantime, I'm just starting the editing on them, and then we were hoping originally it was going to be maybe around Halloween, but now it seems like that's unrealistic if we want to do any sort of pre-marketing for it. So I don't know. I hope by the end of the year.
Okay. And you're sure Pete Rollick's in this book?
Frolic is in the book.
No, he is?
Or someone with his name.
Well, I happen to know that his wife writes it all up, and her pen name is Pete Rollick.
Oh. Well, we're going to be putting
So-
pictures of all the authors in the book, so he'll be found out.
Wait, did I send you a picture?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
Why are you
okay.
nervous suddenly?
Well, you know, I have a reputation to uphold.
Yeah, of sending pictures over the internet, you sure do.
I know. Compromising photos.
Salome does not need any of your pictures that you're sending, okay?
All right.
Hey, let me speak for myself here. Pete, I don't need any of those pictures that you're sending out.
But you want them. You know you want them.
That's not that she
Oh
needs them.
boy.
All right, so okay, we're giving away the ticket. We're giving away the Ann K. Schwader poetry book, Right Map, and also that graphic novel,
Hickman's model.
Hickman's Model. Right.
By
Okay,
Hale.
so
Great.
as usual, if you would like for me to randomly select you for one of these prizes, please don't email the Lovecraft eZine address. Use Lovecraft eZine prizes at gmail.com. I'll type that on the message board, but it's Lovecraft EZINE and the word prizes all together at gmail.com. And in the subject, please put which prize you're going for. And yes, you can go for more than one. Just send me separate emails if you do that. And then a couple of hours after the show, I will use random.org to select the winners. So some cool prizes. Yeah, that's a damn good poetry book, and of course getting a ticket to Necronomicon is always for free is pretty awesome. Thanks for that, Niels. Appreciate it.
Me too.
So okay, we got some more stuff to talk about.
Well, I did have one question. Mike, are you going to have a live eZine chat there, or is that something else?
Yes. To one of those questions. Niels asked me if I wanted to, I think it was Sunday, Niels, if I wanted to reserve a slot to do that. And and I asked you guys if you wanted to do that, and it sounds like a lot of fun. And I think really the only contingent thing is that wherever we would be that has sufficient internet that we can do a Google Live Hangout chat.
That clearly doesn't seem to stop us in any other situation.
No, but I'm
that-
always planning ahead, guys. So
I don't know, Mike. When you and I talked about this before, it sounded like it was a done deal to me.
it is a done deal as long as we have internet. So I guess I'm just hedging my bets. That's all. And
Right.
It's a done. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have internet. I just have to make sure that it's obviously very good internet, so that it will go smoothly.
I mean, Google Hangout never fouls up, so we don't have to worry about
right. Well, if in fact, my hope is that it'll actually be the best, clearest Lovecraft eZine chat ever. We're actually planning to do all three lunches, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's a different either podcast that's being live, presented live, or Lovecraft eZine. So I think, if I remember correctly, Lovecraft eZine is on Sunday.
It is, yeah.
So you're kind of going to be sort of the wrap-up day, really sort of looking back at the whole weekend, the whole convention.
Yeah, but for those of you watching this now and later, it's not going to be at 6 p.m. Eastern. I don't remember what time you told me, Niels, but it's I believe it was 11 or 12 Eastern, something like that.
At noon, it'll be noon Eastern. We're starting just a little before then, probably.
Yeah, noon Eastern.
Each day. So
yeah.
Friday is Miskatonic University podcast. Saturday is Chad Pfeiffer and Chris Lackey's literary podcast is doing their podcast at noon, and then you have the Sunday slot at noon.
Those guys are such nice guys and cool. The literary podcast guys really are. So. I'll look forward to that. Okay. Well, thanks for being on the show, Fred and Niels. And I'm not sure if Amy's still here or if she's frozen.
No, she's there. She's moving.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
my
is she?
pleasure. I had a great time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
It was great.
And, oh, I know what I want to say before we log off here. We have some really, really cool guests coming up the next few months. Next week is 4th of July weekend, so, again, we're not going to have a show. Just worked out that way this year. But then on July 12th, we've got Angela Slatter, then Peter Klein's on the 19th, Gemma Files on the 26th. Then moving ahead a little bit, after Necronomicon, August the 30th, we've got Brian Hodge. And then in October, a lot of Lovecraft fans are familiar with Wayne June. He has recorded, he's a fan favorite with Lovecraft fans because he's got a really distinctive voice. He's recorded a lot of Lovecraft stories. He's going to be on October the 11th. And then October the 4th, Trent Zelazny, who is Roger Zelazny's son. He's actually a crime author. A lot of people don't realize that are Zelazny fans. We're going to talk about his work, but then after that, we're also going to talk about his dad's work, and he's got some really good stories about when his dad was writing A Night in the Lonesome October, which is one of my favorite books. And actually, Laird is a really big fan of his dad, and Laird's going to be on the panel that, not as a guest, but just to talk to Trent as well. So Trent and Laird will be on October the 4th. So we got a lot of cool programs coming up for the next few months. So anyway, thanks everybody for watching, and I will choose the winners here in the next couple of hours and email everybody and post it on the message board. So see you guys in 2 weeks.